Should you buy a house now or keep saving for a bigger down payment and buy later? So in this video, we're going to talk about how much money you need to buy a house, what the market is doing, and the pros and cons to buying now or waiting a little bit and buying later. Hey everybody, it's Brad Decater with the Decater Real Estate Group. This is a channel where we go over all the real estate tips for buyers and sellers in our local market here in King County, Washington. Okay, so first off, the intention of this video was to be talking to people who are able to buy right now, but are deciding between buying now or buying later. So this video is not really for people who don't qualify to buy currently, although I want to start with a really quick, 30 seconds about those people. So the first thing to find out is, can you actually buy? You do this by getting pre-approved with a lender to see if you can qualify for the loan. So this step needs to be done to find out if you are able to buy, but all these things that I'm going to talk about aren't going to really apply if you aren't actually qualified to buy. So this video is not quite for you guys, but if you're in that position, what I would do is I would focus on, budgeting and savings rate. So instead of researching all the home buying process right now, I would be researching, like I said, budgeting and saving so that you can get into a better financial position, or maybe it's credit repair, things like that, to actually get into a home. I have plenty of videos in this channel about budgeting and also credit repair, things like that. So feel free to check those out and then come back to this video when you're thinking about actually buying. Okay, so if you are in a position that you are able to buy, but you're just trying to figure out, hey, is this the right time for me, or should I actually be waiting 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever that time is in the future? So there's a lot of different factors that go into this decision. So this video is pretty tough, and I will start by saying I'm just going to give you some pros and cons of the different things that I know. But in the end, personal finance is personal. So buying a house is a completely personal decision. So it's going to depend on what you think, and I would encourage you to just weigh your options and do your pros and cons of the different scenarios that I'm going to lay out for you right now. And hopefully it helps you make a better informed decision. Okay, so how much money should you have to be in a position to be buying a house? So I have other videos on this as well, but for simplicity, let's just say that you're not going to be doing the down payment assistance type programs, and you're going to be a conventional buyer. So you're going to be at the very, very low end, 3% down for a first timer, maybe 5% down. Obviously, you can do 10% or 20% as well. So we're talking about those people that have that amount of money saved up and they're ready to go. So how much money do you actually need to buy the house on top of the down payment? So if you're at the 3% down, or let's just say 5% down, you're going to need your closing costs and also a reserve. So let's say you're buying a $500,000 house at 5% down. That's going to be $25,000 for the down payment, probably $7,000 to $10,000 for closing costs. Let's say 10, so that's $35,000. And you definitely want to have a few months reserves. I would say a minimum of 3 of the mortgage payment. So let's just say another 10 grand in reserves. That would make you feel comfortable and be in a position to buy a house. So you have somewhere in the $50,000 range, and you are in a position to buy. So now your decision is now or later. So this is the real meat and potatoes of the video. This is for the people I'm talking to. You have 5% down right now, maybe you have 10%, but you've heard or you think that maybe you should consider saving until you can get to 20% down. Because a lot of people, Dave Ramsey, people like him, they really suggest that you wait until you have 20% down to buy a property. And there are great benefits to this. You don't have the mortgage insurance, PMI, you have more equity, so you have essentially less risk, so you're in a much better position, on the property. So I totally agree with all that, and that is true, and that should be part of your decision making. So that's the one side of it, is that getting 20% down would be great because you get rid of all the mortgage insurance and things like that. So that's awesome. The problem is, and the reason that I fear actually waiting for waiting for you to save, is because most people, they can't actually outsave the market. So as far as pros and cons, I would put a con to buying later, being that you probably will actually be making a fairly expensive decision because the market's appreciating fairly rapidly, and even if your savings rate is doing pretty well, you probably can't keep up with inflation and the market actually moving up in the fashion that it is. And by buying now, it's probably going to work out better for you financially. So the best way to explain these things is in real life scenarios. So let's just say you're a buyer and you have the $50,000 to buy, and you think it'd be better if you had $100,000. Of course, I would agree. It would be better. That'd be awesome. But getting another $50,000 doesn't just happen like that very often. And so you need to save. And so I would say someone who has that amount of money, I mean, it depends, but if you could be saving like $2,000 a month, that would be awesome. I'd say that you're killing it. You're saving a lot of money, based on your income, and that's awesome. But even if you were saving $2,000 a month, that's going to end up being $24,000 a year with appreciation projections just this year. And we don't know what's going to happen, but if you go back in time, that's not going to be enough to even catch up with what the appreciating market's going to be doing, not to mention interest rates. So let's just say you're buying a $500,000 house today. That same house 12 months from today could be worth $550, $575, $600. Very, very possible. This last year, our market appreciated. It probably would have been $500 to $600. I don't expect that this year, but it might be worth $550. So you're paying $50,000 more for a property, and you only save $24,000 more. So right there, you're kind of losing out on some equity there. The second thing is interest rates. So interest rates have been going higher a little bit recently, and they are trending to go forward, or they're trending to keep on going higher as we go, because the massive inflation that has been happening over the last year with the Fed, printing money and buying up those mortgage-backed securities. Inflation is literally out of control. And so the only way the Fed can kind of get a harness on that stuff is to be raising their federal fund rate, which is going to be raising our mortgage interest rates in turn. So interest rates, all the experts say that they are going to be going up, and so I tend to agree with that. So assuming that we get an appreciating market and have interest rates go up, your buying power shrinks even more. So your $500,000 house today that went up to $550 in a year from now with appreciation, maybe $600, you're also having to pay on a loan monthly payment that actually feels like maybe $650 because your interest rate is almost a point higher as well. So all those factors going in together, make me lean towards the buying now part. And that's what I did. I just bought last year as well. So I'm not just saying this because I think people should all buy right now. Again, this is a personal decision. Personal finance is personal. I totally am with that. So I'm just saying, I'm speaking purely financial, that if I had a crystal ball, I would venture to guess that buying today would be better financially for you than buying a year from now, as a guess, because I don't know what's going to happen. But generally speaking, that's going to be, it's usually be an appreciating market, and interest rates are on the lower side still, so it's a good time to lock in your rate. So hopefully that helps you guys. This video isn't so much about the benefits and the downsides. It's more about what's comfortable for you. The main point is to tell you that in most cases right now you can't really outsave the market. So again, the video is not for people who can't quite buy yet. Then obviously you do need to save some money. So if you can't buy right now, it's not really between buying now and buying later. You have to buy later because you're not qualified currently. In that case, you need to save more money and do the other things, improve your income. But for the people that do have 5 or 10% down right now and they could buy, I think it's going to be a much smarter decision to buy now than it would be to buy in a year from now based on my projection. Again, there's no guarantee, not financial advice, but that's what I see in the market. And the last question I want you guys to all ask yourself when you're considering these two options is, can I afford the payment? So obviously a lender, must have pre-approved you to buy the house if you're getting a house. So of course you can afford it, based on those standards. But do you really feel comfortable in it? And do you feel comfortable with your job and income, and that if things change, you could still afford that payment? And the reason that question is so important to you is because the market does go up and down. So yes, I am projecting an appreciating market, but this is another reason why I do think it's still a good idea to buy, now, because you can't really time the market. No one can time the market. It could go down tomorrow, or it could be like another 10 years. We really don't know for sure. All we can do is guess and project and things like that. So because you can't really time the market, if you spend all your time waiting for it to crash, you could be waiting forever, and people have been doing that, and it has not been going well for them. So because of that, it just comes down to the simple question, can you afford it? Because if you can, and the answer is yes, then it's a good time to buy, because the downside is still protected. So the downside, the fear that I get from people when I talk to them about these situations is, well, what if the house goes down in value? And I say, well, if that's the case, as long as you have the same job and you can still afford your payment, then nothing happens. You still live in your house. There's no landlord kicking you out. You still live there. You're paying the exact same amount a month. So you were paying $2,500 for your mortgage, and the house is worth $600. Now the house is in a down market. It's worth $550. You're still paying $2,500. So your life doesn't change significantly. It has affected your net worth on paper, of course, but you don't realize those losses unless you sell. So unless something drastic happens and you absolutely have to sell, like you're moving, even then you could rent it out. The more threatening situation isn't the value going down, it's you actually losing your job or your form of income in some way. Because if that happened, then you couldn't pay the mortgage and then you can get foreclosed on. So the property being up 50 or down 50 or the same as when you bought it doesn't quite matter as much for your actual lifestyle because your payment stays the same. It only matters if you can keep paying your mortgage or if you can't. And if you can't, obviously that's bad. But I would argue it's still bad if you're in a rental. If you can't pay your rent, that's also a problem. You would get evicted. Same thing as getting foreclosed on, but you're losing the actual asset. So both negatives to not being able to make income and paying for it, of course. But the value thing, it's going to go up and down, and we know that, and that's okay. Over the long term, it will go up. So as long as you can make your payment, I think it's a good time, and that would be, should be part of your consideration when you're thinking about should I buy now or should I buy later. So the recap is, make sure you can make your payment. If you can, then you should be in a safe position because nothing's going to change on the payment aspect of it, and you can hold that real estate for a long term to get the appreciation that it's going to have. And also, if you have 5 or 10%, but you really think you need 20%, it's just not true. You can definitely have that, as an option, and you can consider and do the pros and cons, like I mentioned. But typically, it's going to be very hard to outsave the market, and you most likely will be better off by doing it early, or at least consider doing it sooner rather than later because of market conditions. So hopefully this helps. Again, it's personal. These are just my opinions, but hopefully it helps you guys. If you have any questions or anything to comment, put them down there. I'd be happy to answer your questions. If you found this valuable, please consider subscribing. We're going to be releasing 2 videos a week for real estate content, some local market videos, and we hope to share the rest with you soon. And we hope you guys enjoy. Thanks.